very,
Yeah.
as you can see, I'm a little bit.
No, we're on the same
concerned
page. Abdul, tell us more about this aspect of the industry in the MENA region, because I don't really know a lot about it, but how you run an accelerator. Are there a lot of accelerators? Do you think there's going to be more? Do you think it's important?
3 years ago, you had zero accelerators. Actually, the only accelerator that existed in the Arab world was in Ramallah, funded by USAID. And I think that because of the exposure to the Israeli ecosystem. But if you go in the Arab world, that did not exist. It's only, the 3 years ago, this whole thing started. So yes, there are now more and more incubators, accelerators. There are some seed funds, and there are few VC funds. Actually, there are 3-4 VC funds. One is about 100, another about 50 million, 25 million. So it's not the big funds, but this is picking up. There are more and more angel investors. Actually, we are setting up. There's something called EPAN, which is the European Business Angel Network. And now with EPAN, we are creating AMBAN, the MENA Business Angel Network. So this is also happening, creating syndicates and angel networks that will co-invest, because this is extremely important for the success of the ecosystem. In terms of governments, you start seeing some initiatives. For example, in Kuwait, the Kuwaiti government just announced a fund called Kuwait National Fund for Entrepreneurship, which is a $7 billion fund. I'm on the board with that fund, so that's a big fund that was launched by the government of Kuwait. In Lebanon, for example, the Central Bank of Lebanon, with the instruction of the government, came up with a 500 million bank guarantee, which will guarantee the VC fund. So anybody can do a VC fund, and that VC fund is guaranteed by the central bank, which is extremely important. There are other initiatives in Oman, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia. So you see a lot of things happening, and I think what's missing and what everybody's waiting for, the first exit to be announced. So the minute that first exit, because the only exit that happened in the Arab world was the Maktub Yahoo 15 years ago for $170 million, and that completely created a huge hype. I think the first exit that happens, and you have, for example, one of the companies in Jordan, it's called Marca VIP, it's an e-commerce company. Until now, VCs have invested up to $100 million in that company. So you start seeing this kind of huge money being invested in startups and seed funds and angel funds and some VC funds.
Very interesting. Actually, follow-up question: do most of the startups that come out of these, accelerators or your accelerator or angel groups, do they usually target Arab-speaking world, or do they think global from the beginning?
Both. Actually, the Arab market, it's as big as Europe, as big as North America. So this is not a small market. 350 million is a huge bulk. And Arabic as a language is underserved. If you look at the web, the content on the internet and the number of portals per citizen and all of that, so you will discover that the Arab market is underserved. Plus, if you look at, for example, Saudi Arabia, it's the highest consumption globally with mobile games. So there's purchase power. There's a high purchase power that's already, but the supply is coming from outside the region, and usually this supply is not taking care of the local taste. So the local market by itself is big, and it justifies the focus on the Arab market. Actually, we will not invest in any startup that doesn't have at least the Arab market as a target market minimum. But a lot of our startups, they have the global market as a target, and it's not, none of them is only Arabic, except one which is the entertainment portal in Arabic, targeting the Arabic market only. But the rest of them, they are multilingual. Arabic is one of the languages, but they also, one of them is, as we speak, in the education sector. It's in Australia, it's in Canada, it's in Saudi Arabia, it's in Jordan. So it's from day number one in all these markets at the same time.
Very interesting. I don't know how we're doing on time, but we started a little earlier. Yeah, I was just going to say we can take some questions from the audience if you have any. I don't know if we have a mic available. We do. So if anyone has a question, just raise your hand and we'll come to you with the mic. Or not. There's not a single startup in the room that wants to ask questions to these fine gentlemen. There's one in the back over there. All right, so before you ask the question, tell us who you are.
Okay, I'm Laszlo Korányi from Hungary. I'm from the government side, so not really from the startup side. But I would like to ask you about what kind of trends do you see, or new trends do you see in the deal flow? Or are there any new trends? And if you can elaborate on that a little bit.
All right, maybe one for Gilad. What are some of the new trends that you're seeing in terms of deal flow?
So I think in the past 12 months we see a lot of focus in artificial intelligence, big data, augmented reality. Those three fields are, and cyber of course, which actually taking a lot of focus of new startups globally.
IoT also. There are not too many fields currently, only I guess 5, 6 that are trendy now. Cyber is one, IoT, big data, those are the main ones.
Marcus, your views?
I agree, right? I think the concern is, for perceptual computing, which would include augmented reality as part of that. Frankly, I see a lot of people getting funded there, but this is a trend that happened 4 or 5 years ago already, right? You have already companies that were there, some were successful, some failed. But yeah, we still see companies in that space.
Right.
We see big data, both analytics and storage is very important. I would even argue that storage, big data storage, Israel is the top country in the world for that. Companies are still very early on, but you have to come in and early in that segment. Analytics is much more linked to the vertical segment they're tackling, and then you have to be very picky, and you have a lot of interesting stuff in the US, you have interesting stuff here, you have interesting stuff in Western Europe. Security as a whole, frankly, it wasn't a segment that was very active before. We had 4 or 5, 6 investors that we were active in it. We were one of them. There was a big surge of investors coming in after some big exits that took place, and actually that's actually more competitive for us, but it has revitalized the segment, so that's good. And Israel is again on the forefront of that. IoT, as I mentioned, again is a big segment. We have invested in a company called Sigfox, which does the communication network for wide area networks, if you will, because one of the issues there is the signaling, which drains the battery power of the elements which are in the field. Right. So you have to be conscious of that. But then on top of that technology, there's so many different verticals that are active, and we're seeing a lot of interest there. There's a lot of interesting companies coming out. The nature of VC is one that those trends today will be ancient history in 18 months' time, right? Yeah. So that's the beauty of the segment, is that you see the entrepreneurs coming out with bright ideas, saying, "Look, I'm now looking at this other change, and that's where I'm going to go for."
Yeah.
So.
I'm amused when people confuse trends with new technology and real innovation, because sometimes if you look at 3D printing, for example, technology's been around for 30 years, right? It's only now that we start seeing the commercialization and more product, new consumer focus. Yeah.
Intel is an enabler of new startups and new ideas. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your new chip that you just launched.
Oh.
That's an enabler for a whole market of new technologies, yeah. New ideas, new products.
It's not only Intel, right? I think all the big companies are playing this ecosystem. That's why I mentioned when I said, is the strategic analysis important for us? Well, actually it is. I'm just not measured by that, because you can't really measure someone by it. But we are investing in companies that would fit ecosystems that Intel can play in today, or we take a vision that Intel could play in the future. Regardless of those companies are going to have a link directly to Intel. But us and the competitors of Intel, right? And I can name a lot of competitors here, which are active in the sector. I think the mentality is the same, right? We hope we're going to win versus them, but frankly, it's a positive thing that these guys are doing. Very few companies are coming out with things that I want to buy this, or I want to get there to get everybody out, if you will, right? I think everybody's looking into this as a complementary strategy, right? And I think mentioning what you said there about, look, yeah, 3D printing's been around. I mean, I even mentioned one thing that Intel has been associated, right, with the Centrino effort that took place about 10, 15 years ago. Wi-Fi had been around for what, 15 years back then? It never came out, really.
Still doesn't work well.
Well, but I'm trying to say that the intervention of big companies in the segment, and I think in that case it was us, made it happen, right? But Intel alone would not have made it happen. The fact that there was this big number of startups that were interested in that is the beauty of it, right? Is
And
that
the combination between the different fields makes
exactly.
new ideas.
And the big companies, you
come
know,
true.
they are very big. They obviously they have cash, they can invest, and they have their own R&D programs, which one linked to the core of those companies is a powerhouse. But when you're talking about the fringes where the extra innovation is coming out, this is really where the entrepreneurs come from, right? Where they have to be active in, and that makes a big difference. Some of that innovation is disruptive to the big companies themselves. But, you know...
Okay, more to talk about after the
yeah,
panel.
a lot to talk about, sorry.
No worries. Last question?
Hi, my name is Amir Fisher. I'm leading a company coming out of the Technion Institute of Technology. We're developing a 3D interactive platform for education publishers. And my question is, what's your take on education technology?
Anyone in specific from the panel, or?
No, it's general.
All right, your views on...
Actually, I'd like to hear each one of them because everyone brings a different perspective on it.
Fair enough. Educational technology.
We invested in a company, actually that company is out of Nazareth, and it is a social education platform, cloud-based, that has an amazing new offering, connecting teachers, students, parents, and school administration. It has all the features that is required, from the basic stuff, registration, grades, etc., to the interactive content and education material, to all the business intelligent dashboards to assess and evaluate the performance of schools, teachers, etc. And to be frank, when we first started the investment, we were, you know, not sure how well this company will do. Now it's among our stars, and as we speak, in no time the company is operational in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Dubai, Jordan, Israel, Palestine, Canada, Australia.
Big growth market for it. Big growth market
It's
for
big
education.
growth, and it's really doing extremely well. So I think there's a lot of in the MENA region, the budgets for educations are in the tens of billions of dollars. There's so much money there to enhance and upgrade the education systems. And I think everybody now accepts and understands that the so-called e-books or digital is nothing. And at the same time, having these servers and, you know, putting computers is not the way. But it's more of having this dynamic platform that offers all what is needed. I think the beauty about the company that we invested in, it can integrate with different technologies that complements what we are doing in terms of the content supply, in terms of the smart boards, etc. So it is integratable with all of these things. So our experience with education technologies, it's a booming market. There's a huge demand for it, at least in the MENA region.
Good space to be in. I'm sorry, but unfortunately we don't have time to let everyone answer. We have to wrap up as time is out.